Uh, what's up? How is it? Don't be so fucking weird to stream today. Yet anyway, uh, here we are. That doesn't sound good. Can I actually check my own audio? I like. Yeah. It's man. It's so. You get accustomed to some degree to your own voice and whatnot, but you never expect it to one day, once again, get even worse. Sorry. What the fuck? I hate this guy. I hate how he sounds anyway. Yeah. We're going to act like that's normal. We're, we're going to do like it's the most normal thing ever. Why am I so big again? What's going on anyway? Welcome. Good morning. Here we are on another day. What is it today? I was going to say Monday. No, it isn't Monday. Today is Thursday. So yeah, today what are we doing? Uh, 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 what are we actually doing? Yeah, today, colon. Wow, it's so hard. Okay, there it is. There it is. There we go. Finally, now also I should change this image. Uh, which one of them? Good question. I don't know. Let me let me rapidly choose one. Like this one. This one. You can't see that one. What's order, edit, reset, transform. There we go. And now we have some balloons. So kino. Haha. But anyway, yeah. Good evening. I think I don't know. I can now mute. I what is it? I want to know myself also. I guess it's kind of fun. I don't talk enough, so it only happens throughout the day that it keeps getting worse and worse. So only when we are here at the night, one of the many, I guess, I don't know. Is it? What is it? Why are we actually having issues now? Issues that weren't present before. There is no plausible explanation for why I am going mute, I guess. But anyway, the real point is here we are. So that's sort of fine already. Yeah, that's I guess that's sort of good enough to some degree. To some degree, it's better than nothing. So yeah, good one. It has been like a little while since the last time that we were here. Last occasion was on yesterday, reading the Mahabharata a little bit and such. So yeah, not much actually happened there in terms of besides reading the story. It's always good to do that, but it's useful to properly focus on that as always. But outside of that, it's also sort of unproductive. Is not the word. It's just you do something with intention and you only accomplish something in that one field in which you are acting on. Also, I know what I was forgetting. I had to unplug the mouse. There we go. We are so back. Good evening. Now for real, sorry for the bad audio. This time it was truly fixable and I didn't realize that. But anyway, good evening. What's going to happen today? Today we are going to be here saying something, I guess. Is it today? I think yeah. As far as I remember, today it wasn't anything special, supposedly. So it's fine, you know. It's incredibly fine. But yeah, I don't know. I think I have been experiencing stuff lately. Let me start with that. I have been experiencing a lot of of information. I guess that's the easiest way to talk about it. And I think something very funny is to see how in many areas of life, the common thing is always to find out how incre- incredibly unproductive it is to utilize overly specialized language. Not that it is necessary. Once again, it's not an obligation to have it, but rather you just have the possibility of having something of that sort, And we end up choosing a lot of the time those modes of language, and I find myself after distancing my own personal experience, my own subjective experience from the common denominator, it becomes a lot easier to finally go back and understand what is being talked about, so to speak. It's, I don't know, I don't know exactly in which area of life it or in which, I guess, description it lands the best. There are many ways to talk about this idea of, oh yeah, once you take some distance from the things that you are knowledgeable in, you get to tie more ends together so that you understand more things, all in relation to one another, not just by themselves, but rather you get to understand an even bigger picture than before, and that is in itself already helpful for your next discoveries in the same area. Okay, something like that is true. I'm not trying to say that it doesn't happen at all, but it's more along the lines of, and while that happens, other phenomena also exist. It's along the lines of you also keep absorbing knowledge of different areas of life. Like I don't know. I think something that unavoidably has the easiest way of finding examples and whatnot is the correlation between the stuff that has to deal with. I, I, I guess, yeah, unavoidably, I am embedded in things that are related to both psychology, philosophy, yeah, and both fields end up sharing a lot of the ground, and not in the most obvious ways. In many cases, if you understand some of the stuff that is being presented on one side, the other end is a lot easier to navigate. And just because of that, it is already positive enough for us to get to have an even better opportunity at finding stuff out. So, in conclusion, what I'm trying to say is, yeah, many things are like that, and much, I don't know if pretty much, but a huge quantity of the knowledge that ends up being available to us falls under those categories of things that do not exist in the void of uniqueness, so to speak. It's more along the lines of, yeah, these things are correlated or can be similar in their modes of presentation, of talking about what the ideas that contain them are. Do they share a lot more similarities with other things than what they might even realize. And because of that, it is already a good enough basis for everything else. In a way, yeah, that allows, I guess, anyone who is interested in doing so to find out that actually it's not all that hard to gain any kind of knowledge. It's quite an enjoyable ride to do that. So yeah, it's basically just that. In this case, the same thing, but a little bit, a little bit more intense, basically. And due to that situation, due to those conditions, it's such a it's such an enjoyable thing to keep on trying to get anything. I guess I talk from my subjective viewpoint of, yeah, I have been learning, I have been capable of connecting more stuff, but I don't try to say that it is only something that happens to me. I think it can be a commonly found real. recurrence, basically. It's something that almost anyone could, probably if they wanted to, replicate, but in itself, the issue nowadays is that it doesn't happen as much. So that becomes an issue. But otherwise, it's a good. It's incredibly awesome actually to see that, yeah. So many other areas of life always offer modes of interpretation that allow any person to gain knowledge in ways that they feel are rewarding, not just because they trigger some basic reward system, but rather because they truly give them more tools to keep on doing anything else that they might want to. So yeah, in that case, I just see that happen in me, and I have one to say it's nice, it's interesting, but also it's surprising. I guess I don't know. I feel like always there are so many things that we talk about in life. It's weird to see that we end up in places like this one discussing stuff of this sort when it shouldn't be something that we need to be at all trying to talk about. Not because it is unnecessary, but rather because it is something obvious enough. It's like those those not yeah, that category of things that always gets called the obvious stuff and such. It's like, oh yeah, we breathe air and need to drink water and need to consume food and need to sleep. Supposedly it's obvious, but on the other hand, to some degree it stops being so obvious. I don't know at which point we lose the capacity to point at the obviousness of our arguments and whatnot, and we just become creatures that have lost a lot more or orientation towards any kind of useful knowledge in that sense. So yeah, that's why in my case I am saying I find it weird. I don't think it's something utterly bad, but I just find it weird, I think. And I like it. I would like to learn stuff, but I also feel to some degree bad to say, as always, I feel bad when I have to say, oh yeah, yeah, it's such a great time getting to learn so much. I don't know, man. It's always when you are in a space in which you have to see other people try to do the same things as you and struggle, and in this particular case, see them almost feel so bad because they cannot arrive at the conclusions that should be obvious for everyone or that are necessary to get any other thing basically, yeah. And that's that's annoying because not that the people don't get to have that right, but rather isn't it supposedly obvious how we learn and whatnot? I think it shouldn't be something that needs to be embedded in such a light of, oh yeah, yeah, this thing in itself is utterly annoying and incredibly destructive and whatnot. It doesn't need it to be called that. It gets reduced to that. I find it, but I don't know. I don't fully say it with the intent to just, I guess, irritate anyone. It's just, yeah, it's wonderful to see that as always any person can learn stuff and they can integrate more and more knowledge that gets them to, at the end of the day, construct an even more complete picture of what they are trying to deal with. And in that case, that's fantastic. On the other hand, yeah, I don't see it happen enough times. Not in terms of, oh yeah, I don't do it myself. I feel bad because of me. I'm having a great time. Personally, I'm having a wonderful time. I am incredibly content with all of that in terms of, oh yeah, yeah, the results that you get to have. I always talk about stuff like time compensation and whatnot. I think it should be an obvious enough statement also that, for example, when you're embedded in things that you say you care about, one of the most obvious things that happens is how your sensation of time dilates and gets modified. I won't just say dilation in terms of, oh yeah, yeah, it becomes so much slower the time passing when you are embedded or Yeah, when you are invigorated and doing what you like the most, not in that sense, but rather in the sense of you want to know something funny. If you are actually doing something that you care about, you're going to find out that some days can feel almost endless. It's this idea of we have all of us 24 hours in the day, and those days that we get to use only on the things that we like, living, so to speak, the most optimal life that we can have, those days are the most fulfilling ones. It's a sensation that you cannot get otherwise. And that sort of stuff is not only a said and proposed idea in terms of, oh yeah, this happens to me. I don't think about it that way. I think it can be pretty easily observable in anyone's existence. It can be something that happens in many cases. And the issue is that we are not truly all that accustomed to at all trying to even recognize it as such. It's, I don't know, man. I think it's unavoidably, partially bad. On the other hand, it's also wonderful that, as always, no? We don't fully settle onto anything, but, it's not like we are doing the worst job possible. We are in some areas getting it, getting to even better places, let's say, to even greener grounds. That's a good expression. And it's just that when we think about it, it doesn't sound like that. It's the common speech that you can hear is not focused on that perspective. It's more along the lines of, oh yeah, yeah, and we're trying to talk about learning, and we're trying to talk about how the human gets to understand more the stuff that they say they care about and whatnot. And that the reality is just, I don't know, man. I think it's nice enough. It's sort of good enough. If a person is doing what they want, their life is pretty around in many ways. It's not so easy to achieve the ultimate level of happiness, let's say like that, yeah? But most people are already happy enough. And just with that, many other possibilities as, yeah, are already open. It's not something so bad, man. It's not something so bad or so utterly negative like the common narrative makes it sound like, I guess. That's what I'm trying to say. But yeah, in that same sense, trying to iterate everything that I haven't talked about so far. That's also what I find happening in stuff like unavoidably all that is found in the realm of learning, in the realm of doing stuff that you like and what you want to know. And yeah, many other systems of that sort are always growing onto even better stages of progress. I don't think there is a proper final line. I assume there might be one. I assume so that there is a point in which you say, yeah, you know what, this is where we stop. I don't need anything else here. I am already happy with this. That can't happen. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen, but rather it's just sort of weird, man. It's unavoidably sort of weird that we don't acknowledge all of that as much. As always, the ways in which we stop, that has been what has been bugging me lately. The way in which we stop counting or blessings, if you want to say it in any way, that is commonly spoken of. How we supposedly have so many things that are good for us and whatnot, and all the things that make a person happier and that give them even more satisfaction, or that are already good enough and that should make anyone who has them content with their existence and not needing anything else. And I don't see that happening as much. I feel like almost an endless cycle of, oh yeah, so many other things that we still need. In some cases, it's already good enough, man. And in some cases, that is already wonderful enough. So, I don't know. I'm not saying it in a negative light once again, but it's just one of those observations that I guess one should be capable of giving to themselves. What is it that I might be missing that is already surprisingly positive enough, brother? What are those things that I see contribute to me so much that I can otherwise say are ultimately fulfilling for me that I don't ever stop to look at, to properly identify as nice. You know, it's I hear too much this discussion of suffering. I remember also having mentioned it in a different context of, yeah, the average person probably, if they're going through a bad time, they most surely are going to find that the easiest solution is to kill themselves. That's the actual explanation. It's not something so complicated as anything else. Yeah, you know what? Life gets overwhelming enough, and anyone can regard to that choice. It's not such a complicated equation in itself. If things are all given enough, the choice itself gets almost automatically taken. It's not such a hard to understand idea. The person, once we get to reason out that we possess the possibility to end what we can call the suffering of existence, it becomes an unavoidable destiny that if it ever comes to be the truth, or if it becomes the most necessary thing, uh, an ending such as that one appears as the most plausible solution for the equation that is in itself the problem of living, you know? It's not something so utterly nonsensical or out there. And once you see that, you get to sort of trace back a little bit, or yeah, make some take some steps back, look and see, okay, what is actually then present in most people's lives that allows for them to not take this sort of orientation. Is it only their desire towards anything? I don't think that just by desiring I get to survive, at least personally. I will say, no matter how much I desire, I think if everything else that was around me was utterly horrible, I will almost desire nothing else but the liberation of the things that I say I can want. No, I can see as negative in my own existence, you know? it's it's sort of illogical to think about in a scenario in which everything is bad and I can somehow not think about everything else that happens. I can focus on everything that is not bad while my whole life has nothing good going on around it. Then there should be a ground in which I can stand still and say, yeah, even then I get to have the possibility of other stuff. Even then, I can see something good being, and I can see something that could go into a better position in the future. So all of that stuff is sort of by itself unavoidably a good thing. It's not such a complicated discussion. Yeah, those things which we get to accept and which we can identify as if we were to lose them, the way in which we conduct ourselves right now would almost lose all meaning. That sort of thing is a common question that most people can answer. Maybe not the instant in which they ask themselves that, but at the very least, they get to realize that it is in that way, or it is given, yeah, it, it is something that exists in their life. and has always existed. Once they get to look for the question itself, it's like, I don't know, it's like the always present part of any picture which we can ourselves remember. Any concept, let's say like this. Yeah, we're getting like incredibly complicated. I didn't want to do that, sorry. But the best example that I can think of, there is no idea that the human cannot get if in itself the human cannot first and foremost allow themselves to be part of an idea. For any idea to be understood, the human also has to be part of that idea, even if they don't necessarily participate in the idea itself or contribute anything to it. If there is no person that can understand it, there is no idea that can exist by itself. This discussion about ideas and whatnot is only possible in the realm of what we find to be our actual life or actual mode of existence. The way in which discussions happen is only enabled thanks to our capacity to possess language in itself, and language also is therefore an inherent part to this thing of possessing any capacity to have awareness about what is it that we do when we try to talk about existence in any mode. So yeah, it's in looking to that we can also see then it sort of becomes obvious that as much as I am necessary to understand ideas, if I am not existing there, there is no idea that allows me to. Yeah, there is no idea that can be if I cannot exist. Not in terms of my particularity being always a necessary part of the equation, but rather the human always being necessary for the ideas. The same thing happens with if there is no good thing sustaining the human, the desire to keep on living cannot be found. It should not be a conclusion for anyone to say, yeah, you know what? I wanted to live a good life. I do not get to have anything nice exist around me. Am I going to keep on desiring to have a good life? I might not do so, not matter how much I want stuff, if everything else that is existent around me is bad. I might not possess even a way to consolidate a plan to get things to go into a better position. Therefore, the solutions that I can find might as well require me to either give up this concept of being a living dead. Yeah, a living, how do they call them? Living cadaver or something like that? A husk of my former self in a way, almost, you know? Or directly to just finish the question in itself and not do anything else. Decide finally then to commit to the most drastic of all the decisions in that sense, you know? And yeah, in that sense, it becomes then unavoidable to realize that if that is so necessary, then anyone who hasn't reached any of those two conclusions supposedly must have things that are good, must have something that they can maybe not consciously realize, but that they can at some point, if they were to allow themselves to do so, point at and look as something good that gives them something positive in their own existence. That should be the, not exactly the truth, but at least a theory, something that deserves to be put into rigorous observation. Because I don't know, Lord, I don't see it to be the case that I know of people who are suffering and live only to suffer because nothing else. If the person hasn't given up on what they can be, even if they are suffering, even if their whole life is full of suffering, they can hope for good things, And hoping for stuff can only come in a certain way out of the good capacity in itself that is already given to them by their capacity to extract themselves from the bad things that happen in their life. Let's say like this. What the fundamental equation for all of this discussion is to also understand that it is not impossible for someone to live a completely horrible life and keep on going. That's not something that is not present in this equation. Because the way in which that can also happen, besides just an empty husk, is unavoidably once you understand that the way in which we interpret the world also constitutes something either good or bad. It is possible to not interpret reality or subjective reality as something so bad every single time. Therefore, or thus enabling ourselves to take even better decisions and even more appropriate actions towards the achievement of what we say that we desire and what not. It's not. I don't think it's something so complicated in that sense. It's just time consuming in a certain manner because unavoidably it has a lot of other things already given and already prescribed or added as a weight in a way. But I don't think it's all that bad or all that annoying. It's just I think that otherwise does not get highlighted enough. Once again, I was just thinking this out loud, I guess, in the same way that I was thinking about other stuff out loud. In that realm of things that we cannot properly mention. It's sort of hard to say that everyone who hasn't, I don't know, is it a strong language? I think it's the most appropriate one. Anyone who hasn't killed themselves must have something good in their own life, even if it is only the way in which they perceive everything else that happens around them. Even if it is only just that, they have something good. Even with just one thing that is nice, the person can keep on existing. It's not something so undescribably complex. I, I don't I don't think people force themselves to suffer so much. I might even make the case of those that we can otherwise classify as empty husks do so because of a higher sense towards something that we can't even actually, in many cases, identify. If the person has rejected the possibility of at all discussing what goes inside of them, it is not impossible, but rather I guess, yeah, I guess not unfounded. How do you say it? Unprobable, something like that. It ends up being unprobable for us to know why is it exactly that I decided to keep on going still if everything else is bad. Why? Because the person has also rejected the possibility of at all discussing what is it that moves them. If the person is in a catatonic state, as it gets often defined in those people who suffer so much that they only do what they must and they repeat those things that they were accustomed to without ever changing their routine and whatnot. Even then, you can see many other changes happen and many other, yeah, modifications in the ways in which one orients themselves based on previous stuff. we are still aligned to something. We are still attached to something, even at that stage in which we almost seem to just exist in order to suffer even more. It's. I don't think it's something so complicated, but I don't know. It's just that yeah, I I believe stuff of that sort happens in many areas of life, in many lives themselves, and we just can't realize it enough. But yeah, it's still something nice to keep on dealing with, to keep on trying to think about and what's not. Otherwise, it becomes too much of an issue, too much of something that we can't at all ever properly picture. It becomes more of an absolutely ununderstandable idea if we remain on the area of yeah, this thing that happens. This might or might not be something we we could actually think about it properly, but we would rather move on to something else before doing so, because maybe not exactly, not with 100% confidence or a way to know truly, but maybe it is going to be something that does not lead us to the most appropriate conclusion. So we shall abandon it. I don't know, man. Play a little bit. Ideas are there for us to play with them, I would say. Not in exactly the most, oh yeah, try your best to destroy everything that you used to know, but rather it's just, I don't know, thought experiments shouldn't be all that hard. Thought experiments shouldn't be something so impossible to find. And entertainment in, we have come very far from older times in which all of that was almost called an atrocity and a completely negative thing to have going on and whatnot. But yeah, I don't know, man. Uh, how am I today? I'm very good. Welcome, Dharmadom. I hope you are well. Ah, I I was actually literally just drinking water. I guess. Yeah, I guess. I guess I'm fine. I mean, I can't complain. I don't really have a reason to do so. Uh, just being here is already wonderful enough. Just having the possibility of sit here is already sufficient enough, satisfying condition, I guess. So yeah. Also, good to know that you yourself don't have anything to complain about. It's, I don't know. I guess sufficient enough. It's, I always, let me say it like this. I always think it's interesting to see how accustomed we are to all of that stuff of yeah. We have we have those things that we say are not just necessary but rather are normalized. We have in a particular area of our life that subset of things that become normalized. And within all of that, there is that common reply. I don't know, man. Sometimes I say, for example, the question itself is, "How are you doing?" I say I'm fine. The normalization itself is to just always respond with that, but at the same time, it still is a decision that I can take myself, that I can try to think about. before actually saying anything, I can dedicate at least some time to what I am going to say, to what I am going to express. But we might choose many times to not to do so, even more because if we were to say that we are not good, it could become a pretty dangerous situation. There is, I don't know, that's why I don't like to think about it in a certain sense. It's an unsettling idea that we are instilled paranoia since we're very young. That yeah, you know what? You shouldn't try to worry yourself with anything that has to deal with in itself things of that come, yeah, probably not so enjoyable or not good realm. You shouldn't be discussing things that are not good. You shouldn't be worrying about things. It's to worry is bad to some degree, and to make someone else worry is even worse. So you should always avoid that sort of stuff. We unavoidably at outer stages of life we do that, but even in the most normal part of our life, we don't stop to look at it and say, yeah, you know what? Can you give me an honest response? How are you doing? Maybe I'm doing very well. Maybe I'm doing very well. But at the same time, it doesn't mean still that it always needs to be a contrarian response of how is it that you find yourself to be? And I say, oh yeah, I am terrible. Are you actually terrible? What's going on, brother? No, sorry, I was just saying that to throw you off. No, it's honesty, the capacity to be honest, the capacity to also actually, in some cases, analyze how we are feeling. And I guess the reality, as always, I find it as this whole idea of we can at some point stop and actually look at ourselves from a distance. One of those many occasions is when anybody wants to know how we are doing. At some point, you realize that you are focused way too much on just the way in which you perceive it. How are you doing? How you have to tell other person, another person, how are you doing? You stop and look around at yourself from the eyes of the other person. Is there anything worth saying that is bad? Maybe not. Therefore, maybe it is true that I am doing good. Therefore, it means maybe that I am actually having a good time, and I might have even been only focusing on what I personally thought was bad from my own perspective without realizing that in general I have nice things existing. But yeah, I don't know. I I'm kind of fucking losing it, I guess. But yeah, the proper response is then, yeah, I'm fucking good. I'm fucking awesome. Life could not, probably it can be. I shall not expect it to be, but it could be. The honest response is always it could be. One does not have to believe that things have reached their peak because we never know everything that there is to be known about anything of true importance. So, I cannot honestly say good as I can ever be, but good as I am allowed to be so far. That's, yeah, life is nice. I hope it can also be nice for you, I guess. That's a proper response. That's a more proper response, yeah. But I don't know, yeah. As always, as I say, I don't know. It's just that sort of question that you don't actually stop and look at. I remember, for example, there is one of the many things I remember having heard about is this tactic of how are you doing? Fine. Okay, but how are you doing? And to remind them, the other person, without obviously directly saying it, can you actually tell me how you are doing? Instead of just replying with a, yeah, I'm fine, and you? Can you actually tell me how you're feeling? How is everything going? How how is it that you are still here? What has been happening? Can you do that to me? Can you be honest? it always sort of boils down to that, I guess. But I don't know. I don't need to actually complain. At the same time, we are always trying, to some degree or another, to have, or in some degree or another, yeah, to have a stuff that works for us to slowly get more honest. I remember, yeah, I remember something that I was trying to talk about and I couldn't finish. Not here, but rather in a completely different context with my family. We were discussing stuff in terms of the social events. There was this whole idea of, sometimes we are forced into interaction, yeah, into having interactions with other people because of the places in which we find ourselves. I don't exactly remember the term. I am pretty sure it exists. It's like a basic knowledge of, yeah, when people are forced to be in social situations, they tend to socialize a lot more, and unavoidably, once you remove them from those contexts, the possibility of doing so lessens, and the intentionality behind those interactions also lessen a lot more because surprise, oh surprise, to some degree people are not all utterly interested in dedicating themselves the most to paying attention to what anyone has to say. If it's not an obligation, I can't choose who I associate myself with. I am not actually obliged to stay here if I am having a bad time. I am not obliged to do things that will make me in no way happy if I possess a free will over my actions in that sense. So it becomes an unavoidable conclusion to us that, yeah, in many areas in which you can choose, you might just choose things that bring you higher levels of pleasure. But otherwise, when you are forced to interact with people, yeah, you're obviously going to take the best route to still gain pleasure. And yeah, we are still social creatures ourselves, so it should not be a surprise that we find ourselves interacting with others more under those circumstances. And I was trying to bring this up in correlation with, yeah, and you can't expect everyone to be as honest as they can. You cannot say to anyone, oh yeah, how are you doing? Are you feeling good? Are you feeling bad? How is it that you're actually feeling? Do you have any sensation that is worth talking about? Do you have anything that is sort of important for you? Do you have anything of that sort that you see as a necessary thing to highlight, you know? Or are you actually just skipping around and not trying to have anything else of importance to look at? Because maybe we're just forced, once again, to do what is the most common thing, what is the most acceptable thing. You ask, how are you? The endless. I guess that part is already explained. Somebody asks how you are doing. The easiest thing is to say good. It doesn't matter how you are actually doing. It doesn't add that much to reveal way too much in the first step of any interaction. It's sort of, you want to know something? Maybe it could even be different traditions or the way in which we do stuff. Maybe it is not even how are you doing in general terms. How is your whole life going? It's not that question. Maybe it is how are you doing? Can we actually talk now? Can we have 5 seconds of a tiny conversation? Are you up for that? Are you interested in that? And maybe if I say I am good, it becomes sort of established that yeah, we can do so. And if I say no, unavoidably, you should not try to keep bothering me. Maybe it's under those codes that we also work. I don't know. I guess at that point, I am not that good of an. Is it the proper word analyst to give a proper answer as to why it happens? But yeah, it's just one of those things, I guess, that you see exist and that you never wonder once you have them in front of you happen and such. It's like, I don't know, many other stuff that we have gotten accustomed to saying that is normal and such, when actually it's not really altered. It's not really all that complicated or all that negative. It's just something that deserves a little bit more of thought behind it. Something that could lead to even better results too, if I were to, I guess, do it consciously. Something along those lines. Or if I were to make a judgment out of it, do I need to judge everything? I don't know. I wouldn't say so. I wouldn't say that it is an obligation for anyone to judge everything that exists in front of them. Unavoidably, I guess it's not necessary to have an opinion about everything, but at the same time, the world offers the possibility to see everything that is contained within it. At least everything that we can actually talk about. Unavoidably, there are some things that have slowly become impossible to ever address, but we are not really in that realm of, oh, wow, yeah, this particular subset of things that are unaddressable at all. Not that whole other thing does exist. That's not a matter as much once we get to compare it with anything else, you know? So, thus, what happens is life has a lot of stuff that we never stop to think about. Do we actually need to do that? If it were such a necessity, it would happen unavoidably by nature, or as a consequence of us existing. It would unavoidably happen, let's say like that. But the idea is we're not really obliged to do many things. We're not really forced into many areas. The human ends up having a lot more will than what they can actually realize in many cases. And suddenly, once we start to slowly give up on the possibility of at all forming an opinion about this stuff, is the most fundamental step about anything else. Or after which anything else is created, you know? If I don't have an opinion, I don't have an stance. And if I don't have any stance, I don't have a way in which I can say I find myself to be capable of acting it. And if I don't have something of that sort, I don't have a way in which I can know, I can act, and I can be, and I can do, and I can move myself, and I can keep on aiming towards. If I don't have all of that stuff given to me, or not given out to me, as in, oh yeah, everyone has to decide for me, but rather, if I don't have anything of that sort, I might as well not enjoy such a rich life as I could have if I ever tried to at all analyze anything, you know? Anything, and see what comes out of my capacity to think out this stuff. The world is not so undecipherable. It possesses a lot more apparent basis for existence once it becomes obvious enough that, yeah, we can actually try to have a good time. Once we get to, yeah, realize that this world is indeed something that we can slowly get to understand, at least through subjective experience, you know? That thing of, I might be in nothing if I don't have myself, but at the very least I can have that certainty, and after that everything else is slowly more understandable. Something like that, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. Ah, it's like crazy work, I guess. But yeah, I guess I don't know. Do I have something else that I needed to say today? I guess many things are happening always, but at the same time, I guess it's sort of unnecessary to always be trying to point out anything of huge importance in terms of, oh yeah, every single day must have the biggest weight on it because every single day is a stake and whatnot. To some degree, it's true that yeah, every single day matters, but to some other, it also becomes a lot more possible to realize that actually in ourselves, in our own existence, something also funny, very funny happens. We are not actually always required to do everything all at once. Things slowly moving are also good. Things slowly going towards a good position is also wonderful enough. So yeah, it's one of those days. Just another break in the wall. At the end of the day, you look back onto your memories and you find out that yeah, many of them were wonderful, but only after you have passed through them you can realize that. Otherwise, it's not so easy to say such a thing because what is good sometimes does not get to be called good. Because accepting that somehow most of our life itself has so many nice things might make us find ourselves in a crisis state once we are shown that actually the world has a lot more good things than what we could have ever admitted before. You know, it's this. I live in a tradition in which it is the normal thing to never talk about all the wonders of life. And if I slowly start to do so, I might find myself struggling with all the appalling opposition that I start to find everywhere else. So yeah, something along those lines. It's basically what I'm trying to say. But yeah, I don't know. I I guess that's my point basically. I I have to be honest. I also am feeling going fucking mute. I don't try to talk about it that much, but yeah, I'm starting to feel incredibly without the throat at this point. So yeah, we were here for at least an hour. In terms of something that's good enough. Yesterday it was an issue already. Tomorrow, most surely nothing. Just for me to be silent. And yeah, I don't know. I guess that's it. Do I have anything else to say? Is there anything else that needs to be said? I don't know. Many other things could be always talk about. Do we need to do that? No. Being honest, sometimes you also have to take care of yourself. Maybe it's not the easiest thing to do, but yeah, it's at the end of the day a necessary thing to do. It's, I guess, the endless struggle for a proper comprehension of love yourself as much as you love everyone else and such, or love everyone else as much as you love yourself, you know? Those two things. that are, I guess, complicated to fully get. They are way too simple in terms of words. The actual meaning is not so easy to fully understand. But yeah, anyways, the point is, that's it. That's it, anyways. Have a wonderful night. Have a wonderful day, wonderful evening. Thanks for listening, guys. Um, until next time, I assume. I we have to see when. I don't even know when, but yeah, at some point in the future, next time. But until then, as always, thanks for everything. It has been a pleasure to be here, as always. And yeah, take care, hydrate, do everything else that you need to do. We supposedly are here grown-ups, so you know what you should be doing, right? Do that. Thank you. Good night.